Five, four, three, two, one. We have ignition. In your face, all over the place. We're online 24/7. You're listening to the hottest internet station.
From beautiful Saline in southeastern Michigan.
Around the world at freedomtalkradio.net.
This is the 2009 Top 10 Webcam in the World winner. This is SETV.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Unfortunately, we had a little bit of a music miscue there. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bill Zam. You're listening to the Knights of Liberty radio show. We are doing a broadcast today. We are doing our video feed on freedomtalkradio.net. We are doing the audio feed through Spreaker, so those of you with lower bandwidth or maybe watching on a mobile device can listen to the show. And the guys are currently on the air on Blog Talk Radio as well. So this particular video right here will make its way to YouTube, to the YouTube channels. Those of you that have never heard the Knights of Liberty before can hear them and see them. As you can see, I have photos of our two hosts up here on the top there. That's Andy Peacher. He's the co-owner of the network with me. And down below we have, right down there, Tim Spearman, the outspoken Canadian that appears here on the network. So I am going to go ahead and bring up the audio on Blog Talk, and we will all listen together and see what's going to happen over the next couple of hours, see if this system is going to crash entirely through technical difficulties that are beyond our control. We'll see what happens, and if you'll bear with me for just a minute while I get everything all set up here, I will... You'll be hearing from me throughout the show. So let's go and bring up the audio for the Blog Talk broadcast. Here we go.
One.
This is freedomtalkradio.net, and you are listening to Freedom Talk Radio.
From beautiful Saline in southeastern Michigan.
Around the world.
This is the 2009 Top 10 Webcam in the World winner. This is SETV.
Well, welcome to the Knights of Liberty show with Andy, Tim, and our special guest, Bill Zam, from Surrounded by Idiots. Today we're going to talk about, during the show, we're going to have Kevin Annette's update. He sent us a video today. We're going to talk about the missing kids of the UK and no doubt around the world also. We're going to have news on the flight, I'm sure, and we'll have whatever else people throw into the news pot today. Well, welcome to the show, Tim. Hopefully you're there, my friend.
Well, that's
yeah,
good.
Andy, sorry, I was on mute. Hi, how are you? And, we got Bill on the line, I assume, so we're all good to go.
Yeah.
Having our iPhones. Good.
Yeah, Bill's around. I think he can say hello.
Hello. How are you guys doing today? Hopefully they can hear me.
Yeah, riding. Yeah.
Can I just mention to the listeners that we are broadcasting on the live stream on freedomtalkradio.net. It just comes up on the home page, so no technical experience needed. Just go to freedomtalkradio.net and watch the live feed. You'll see some video clips. You'll see a lovely man with a bit of a bald patch now and again, and you'll see me and Tim's photo. And then you'll see all the websites relevant to what we're speaking about. Does anyone want to knock off the topics? Do you want to start, talking about anything in particular, Tim? Bill,
most people in the radio business, when they hear silence going out over the air, they go into a blind panic. They say, "Well, that if you have silence, you're just going to start losing listeners." Well, that's not exactly true. I think it builds suspense, is what it does. Gets the audience on the edge of their seats.
And especially when you're on trial, when you're trying to be up and coming host, you've got to show the bosses that you're competent, and you don't.
In that case, the three of us are screwed.
Your cell phone.
The three of us are screwed. Then, if that's the case.
So we've apparently got a false flag brewing, perhaps. The United States is on high alert and has deployed military assets to defend the Atlantic coastline of New York to Charleston from attack by a cruise-type missile or low-flying aircraft. False flag terror operations are usually accompanied by some kind of emergency planning scenario drill. Operation Top Off has 15 type rehearsal drills that are staged from everything from a subway sarin gas attack to aerosol spray attack over a population center to drill exercises that consist of hurricane emergency drills like Hurricane Pam, which was staged in the week before and leading up to Hurricane Katrina, similar to how we had Vigilant Guardian, the simulation hijacking drill that was staged the week before and leading up to and on the day of the September 11th attacks. Before Hurricane Sandy hit, which was previously called Hurricane Raphael and then turned its name into Frankenstorm and then transformed into Hurricane Sandy, probably with the intended reference to Sandy Hook, and even the Titanic disaster featured Sandy Hook in its little stage play. These are all staged events. I find that as I go along and research all these things, I find more and more common modus operandi type anomalies that connect all these historical cases so that you can see the same minions are in charge of all of them. Anyway, there's heightened security measures that began with Israel increasing threats against Iran that increased with the mysterious disappearance of Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. Sources at the highest levels of the U.S. military and intelligence community cite the possibility of a terror bombing, even using nuclear weapons, and Obama recently stated his worry and concern that New York might be attacked, and so he put other concerns on the back burner and felt that that was a priority concern. So when you hear people being worried about such things, you know that they probably have something of that built planned. And when I think of the prophecies in Isaiah, and I think about Babylon being destroyed, Babylon the Great, and how the once illustrious Babylon would be viewed by ships from afar because they couldn't approach and come near. And then I think about Babylon, New York, and it worries me. It worries me greatly. And it would be precisely the kind of scare that would lead to the Jewish people returning to their homeland. So no one ever thinks about the Bible anymore, or very few people do, and very few people read it, nor do they know anything about the prophecies that it contains. And of course, this is by design. In the same way that Satan has cleverly brainwashed the last 2 or 3 generations to believe that he doesn't exist. So too have they done an excellent job, these Luciferians, of taking the Bible out of the education system and blinding the people, hoodwinking the people, and preventing the people from realizing that prophecy is already being fulfilled. So anyway, the plot, we have been informed, was to include a seemingly hijacked airliner which would be blamed on Iranians, as stated by Joel Rosenberg while speaking with Greta Van Susteren on Fox News March 18th. Rosenberg claimed the Iranians hijacked the plane to attack Israel. The U.S., however, believes someone other than Iran is planning an attack on the U.S., not Israel, and planning to blame Iran. And now it's come to our attention that Israel has been caught housing in an identical twin of Flight 370 in Tel Aviv. So the plot just thickens, my friends. Just thickens.
It sure does.
Yeah. Obama warns during nuclear summit on March 25th, 2014, while addressing the nuclear security summit at The Hague, that there was this threat. I continue to be much more concerned when it comes to our security with the prospect of a nuclear weapon going off in Manhattan, were his exact words. Now, think about this, folks. Why was the series of tests that were conducted in Nevada and Utah or wherever called the Manhattan Project? Scary, huh?
Very scary. It's a long way from Manhattan down there.
Indeed. So, anyway, so what have you got, Andy?
Well, I'll do my special speech now for Kevin Annette, I think. This is breaking news today. It's quite long, but do bear with us. And then I'm going to play an audio clip. So we've got about 5 or 8 minutes of me giving the Kevin Annette stuff. This is very important, and I did promise we'd get this out early. So, Vatican attempts sabotage of common law court as grisly new evidence is revealed. Prosecution of Pope. Others will commence Monday, April 7. YouTube attached, please post, it says here. So urgent public communique and update from the International Common Law Court of Justice issued under the auspices of the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State, the ITCCS. Saturday, March 29, 8 a.m. GMT. Enclosed, the trial of Pope Francis, the Jesuits and the Anglicans to commence April 7 with opening presentation by the prosecutor's office. The court establishes tighter security after a Vatican-sponsored Black Ops disruption team is dispatched to Brussels. A public information agency is established to publicize and disclose the prosecutor's evidence during the trial. The first report of the agency follows. Children's remains and records ordered destroyed by Archbishop of Canterbury Justin Welby, acting for the Queen Elizabeth. Mass graves of trafficked children are identified in Canada, Holland, the US, and are linked to the Ninth Circle sacrificial cult. The Secretariat of the Court of today released the following public statement. George Bengoglio, aka Pope Francis, Adolfo Pachon, Jesuit Superior General, and Justice Welby, Archbishop of Canterbury, will stand trial in absentia on Monday, April 7, after refusing to challenge or deny the criminal charges made against them in the trial division of the Common Law Court of Justice in Brussels. The prosecutor's office will commence its case against these three chief defendants on that day and will present evidence linking them to the trafficking, torture and death of children and to the concealment of these crimes. The court has delayed the opening of the trial by a week from its original date of March 31 after it received confirmation that a covert operations team has been dispatched by the Vatican to disrupt and destroy the work of the court. The team consists of paid agents of the so-called Holy Alliance, the Jesuit-run spying and assassination agency responsible for the silencing and murdering of papal opponents. The court has accordingly established new security arrangements for its members and especially its key public spokesman, the Reverend Kevin Annett, ITCCS Field Secretary. The court's initial sessions will be closed and conducted at an undisclosed location. However, the prosecution's evidence presented to the court will be made public during the trial for a newly established public information agency attached to the Chief Prosecutor's Office. The first announcement for this agency follows. It's quite another long article, but I think he says it all in his video. If everybody wants to go to www.itccs.org, that's I for India, T for Tommy, C for Charlie, C for Charlie, S for sugar.org, and you'll get all the information there. I'm just going to play a short clip when I find it. Good old Windows 8 has given me my usual troubles. But yeah, so I'm going to play a short clip, and this probably describes everything I've just read out.
Hi there, this is Kevin Annett again. I'm speaking to you on March 29th from an undisclosed location. Now, I have an important update from the Common Law Court of Justice in Brussels concerning the case to be launched soon against Pope Francis, the Archbishop of Canterbury, and the head of the Jesuits for their involvement in not only global child trafficking, but the actual murder and torture of children, which we've documented thoroughly. The case was to commence March 31st in Brussels, but prior to that, when I was in New York City this last week, we received notification from a very highly placed source in the Vatican that a disruption team, a black ops team in effect, was dispatched by the Vatican this last week against the work of the court. Now this team was in the employ and is in the employ of what's called the Holy Alliance, which is the Jesuit-run spying and assassination agency of the Vatican that has operated historically to attack any opponent of the Pope. This team is now in Brussels attempting to disrupt and destroy the work of the Common Law Court in this case, obviously because it's revealing something the Church doesn't want revealed. And as a result, new security measures were brought in, including delaying the opening of the court to April 7th, and also to bring in new security around the court members, including myself. It was also decided the court was to operate in camera or in closed session, not in public session for now. But to compensate for that fact, the court established a new information agency attached to the prosecutor's office. And that agency has released an information in the first bulletin dated today, Saturday, March 29th. Now, I won't read out all of this bulletin. It's contained in an attached email, which will be posted at itccs.org. But it's very important because it shows that the sacrificial cult that we've documented, known as the Ninth Circle, which involves high-placed cardinals and officials in the Church, including former Pope Benedict and others, that this Ninth Circle sacrificial cult did in fact operate at the Mohawk Indian Residential School in Brantford, Ontario, where actually our tribunal did commence excavations at a mass grave of the students at the school. This Ninth Circle cult involves the Jesuits and other officials of church and state. I urge you to read through the bulletin. It has very startling information which confirms what we already knew about the demonic nature of the church's operation of these Indian boarding schools, but how these rituals occurred in many other facilities, Catholic facilities around the world. Now, it's also clear that the primary defendants, Jorge Bagoglio, Justin Welby, and Adolfo Pichon, have been conspiring ever since this information came out to shut down the work of the tribunal, our court, and myself, Kevin Annett. This misinformation campaign continues, but we urge you to read the attached documentation and report at itccs.org from the Information Agency Office of the Citizen Prosecutor in Brussels. Now, I will be returning to Europe in mid-April to assist the work of the court and the Public Information Agency. And we urge you until then to stay tuned for the weekly updated bulletins showing the information that is being introduced in court by the prosecution commencing April 7th. And stay tuned, of course, at itccs.org for more information. I thank you.
Well, thank you, Kevin and Annette. Please tune into our show on Wednesday. We've got a special link up with Kevin in Europe, and that will be on Wednesday at 7 p.m. London time, which will be 8 p.m. in European time and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Pacific, for another update with Kevin. What do you think to that then, guys?
That was a very interesting report.
Do you believe, Bill, because you've commented first, that common law, if used correctly, could probably be the new people's law in the future? Because I've been talking to guys who have basically got elected officials of common law all over the U.S., and they're just wanting to take the whole of America. I think they've got 20% at the moment of America covered, and some cities, they've nearly got full control. It's amazing what you can do with common law.
Yes, it is. One thing that does occur to me, and maybe Tim can chime in on this, is that, the country, obviously, United States, I'm speaking of now, was obviously based on the rule of law when it was originally founded. And common law, I believe, would be a route that we could use to take back what's been taken from us, which would be a good idea. But I would submit that there's also a danger who you have implementing or enforcing the common law, because you could get something close to the witch hunts of the, I think it was in the 1600s, in the original 13 colonies, and it could spiral out of control pretty quickly. So there has to be some sort of common sense breaks on common law, I think, if I am understanding this correctly.
Absolutely, I can already confirm that. Sorry, Tim. I've listened to the guys on 2 shows so far, and you're absolutely understanding that perfect. But I guess if you don't try things, you'll never know what'll happen. But then again, if you look at it a different way, the councillors or the senates that are going out of the areas because of common law coming in, they had a square fair chance, I suppose. You got to look at it that way.
Well,
Tim, any comments? I'll do.
Well, that's a good point, but you have to remember that the reason why we've gotten to this point is because we, as a people here in the United States, have allowed the usurpers to get so far along that they have are continuously violating the Constitution. So, common law may be a mid-step to getting us back to the Constitution, but it can't be a permanent solution by any means. Otherwise, it's more of the same, just throwing out the Constitution and putting in common law, and who gets to dictate the common law other than the people that are in charge? And that's how we got to this point in the first place.
Yeah, I do believe it is all about the Constitution, even with common law. So I already know that. I don't know how we can do that in the UK, but certainly these guys are saying, we want the Constitution back. Nobody should be the leader, only the people. The people should vote equal. Well, not vote so much, but yeah, share equally. Because, like you said, if there is leaders, there's going to be more trouble. Under the new common law and using the Magna Carta as well, under Constitution, it's all going to be fair with no bosses. But you've got to listen to our Wednesday shows because I'm not very good on this subject because I'm learning. Tim?
Yeah, well, sorry. I think that the system of law is currently under the control of Freemasonry, and if you look at Temple Bar in London, Temple Crown is the city of London, and so when we think about crown corporations and crown land all around the world, I believe that it is under their control. Her Royal Majesty and the crown as we see it is a deception. I don't believe that she is the one being referred to when we speak of the crown. So Temple Crown, the city of London, it has the London Financial District and the London Legal District, and they're right next to each other, and everything is in lockstep. The insurance companies, the major banks, the major law firms, all that is all concentrated in the city of London, and of course they're in one another's back pockets, and they're above the law because the legal profession actually protects all these people in the financial industry. So if you've wondered how these banksters have been able to get away with all the things that they have, it's largely because they're in lockstep with the legal profession. And just like a lawyer can't very well sue or take on the academic world and what goes on in that world, and it's also difficult for one lawyer to go after another lawyer, and doctors protect doctors, and all these types of professional conflicts of interest exist, and there's no justice because those that are running the show invoke might is right principle of law, and they're all protecting one another, and you've got a corrupt establishment. You can find so much in our language that indicates the level of corruption that goes on. Temple Bar, passing the bar exam. All the international bar associations are connected to Temple Bar. You have to pass the jurisdictional authority of those that are in charge of Temple Bar. You have to pass your legal bar exam. And so who's in charge? It's the City of London. And who are they in charge on behalf of? But the Vatican in Rome. And the Magna Carta, which was presided over by, I believe it was 15 knights, forcing King John to sign the charter, the Great Charter as it's called. They were Knights Templar, Knights of the Temple. Well, Temple Bar is named after them, as is Temple Crown. Knights of the Temple, Crown of the Temple, Bar of the Temple. And so these are the people that are actually imposing rule of law according to their rules. And it's all being orchestrated out of the Vatican, which is ruled by the Cainites. Satanic bloodlines rule the world. And if you've ever wondered why it is that we've got a world where talent is not recognized and gets nothing but denigrated, and why mediocrity gets exalted, and why you get these no-talent people at the highest positions that end up discriminating against you and treating you like an inferior. And even if you've got the PhD credential, they refuse to call you doctor. And the only people that do get called doctor are, of course, the sellouts and the opportunists and the psychopaths that have sold their soul to the devil. So common law, well, let's see. But I'm very skeptical. And I've learned to be so. As for cynical, no, I'm not that. But skeptical, surely I am. I question everything. And I don't believe in the legitimacy of anything. Not when everything's become so horribly prostituted. I don't believe the United States ever achieved its independence. I think a Revolutionary War of Independence was a ruse. I think Alexander Hamilton, who was the co-signer of the Declaration of Independence, was just an agent of Temple Bar. I believe it constituted no more than sending an internal memo back to Temple Bar. I don't believe it's a binding document from a legal standpoint at all. And I don't believe Canada achieved its independence. I think the Virginia Company simply changed its name to the United States of America. I think Canada was the British North, was basically the Hudson Bay Company, which just simply changed its name to Upper Canada, and then eventually changed its name to Canada. I don't believe that India ever achieved its independence. I think it was the British East India Company, and it simply changed its name to India. I think it's still under the control of Temple Crown and Temple Bar. I think all of our international bar associations and legal associations indicates that there is this control. I can go down to King Street, appropriately enough, here in Toronto, and there's a district that's called Temple Bar. And Grays Castle Graydon and all these international law society people are down there. They're doing international law, issuing patents. I think Grays Castle Graydon does something like, I've forgotten the exact figure, but they do billions in patent law every year. You go into any courtroom, and it's not the law of the land. You've got a gold fringe around the flag, which indicates that all those courtrooms are under International Admiralty Law Authority, which is the law of the sea, and this is the law of basically a transnational empire that never died. The Knights Templar were a transnational empire. They had land holdings in all the European states. They could travel passport free from place to place. They had an enormous amount of power that they wielded, which they never relinquished. And the same bloodlines that were in power back then continue to be in power today. The Merovingian bloodline are the bloodline of the Canaanites. And the tribe of Dan seems to feature large in this. And they settled in Lower Saxony in Germany. They migrated north to Denmark and to Ireland, became the House de Dan, the tribe of Dan in Ireland. They wield a great deal of influence, these Merovingian bloodlines. They became the royal families of Europe. And even though they're trying to manufacture a case for Jesus and Magdalene having a bloodline, it just doesn't exist. It's a complete fabrication. And no matter what archaeological evidence they dig up to support the claim, it's a lie. It is a lie. Jesus did not have any progeny. And no matter what you hear archaeologically to support the claim, it is a lie. Because the Satanists need some fabricated tale to justify probably Prince William, who will become the king of Europe, becoming the Antichrist, and to enthrone him in his proper throne. And to claim that he's got that bloodline of the Archangel is how they will justify his enthronement. And it's a complete sham, a complete farce, a complete lie. Naturally, you would expect this, wouldn't you? So wake up, people, and realize that it's just one grand manipulation, and stop believing in this holy blood and holy grail and the Dan Brown crap. It is just a lie. How could you even believe that Dan Brown has any credibility? He's just an opportunist and poor journalist and a poor novelist, and it's just crapola, 100%.
Oh, Tim, you make me laugh. You've actually had, I've noticed this week, you've had a little go at them, but you haven't raised your voice. You've done it in a mild, calm way, and that's what I was laughing at.
Yeah, well, I'm not so incensed today. I guess my girlfriend put me in a good mood.
Right. Bill, do you have any stories, my friend?
I'm not sure how I can follow up on that at all. The only thing that I have is we appear to have a new stealth aircraft flittering about, courtesy of the United States military. I don't know if either one of you have heard about that at all. I thought that was a very interesting development that has been seen out in the open for the very first time and photographed. I have, in fact, let me call up the photographs that I have here for the video side. Here is one of the still images from the video that was taken of the aircraft. I have a couple of them here. This is very interesting. One of the aircraft is one of my hobbies. I attend a lot of air shows around the area here. I've done a lot of air show photography and whatnot, and I know a fair amount about military planes. One thing I want to point out here with this new stealth aircraft is this is not a F-117 stealth bomber or anything else, because, as you can see by looking at the contrail, it is a dual-engine aircraft. This is not a single-engine aircraft. So this is a dual-engine aircraft, and here is a enhanced close-up version of what this thing actually looks like. And you can see it is a unique shape, a unique delta wing shape. It's almost like a diamond-shaped type of aircraft. It is very interesting. It is a lot of people are in the industry are thinking that it may be the follow-on to the Aurora aircraft that nobody had ever seen, that was supposed to be a supersonic spy aircraft. But I would think that if this is a manned aircraft, it's probably a very high supersonic aircraft. And it's a very, very interesting development in the military world, especially when you consider that Obama this week decided to eliminate the Hellfire missile as well as the Tomahawk cruise missile. And I thought that was very interesting that this would be seen immediately after that. Maybe it's the weapon systems that they have on this thing are the replacement for it.
Very interesting.
I have something totally irrelevant, but it is relevant because the word stealth and aircraft comes into it. But I've just tried to find some articles linked, and in the WashingtonTimes.com news of March 13, it says Top Gun takeover, stolen F-35 secret showing up in China's stealth fighter. A cyber espionage operation by China 7 years ago produced sensitive technology and aircraft secrets that were incorporated into the latest version of China's new J-20 stealth fighter jet, according to U.S. officials and private defense analysts. The Chinese cyber spying against the Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning II took place in 2007 under what U.S. intelligence agency codenamed Operation Byzantine Hades, a large-scale multi-year cyber program that targeted governments and industry. Defense officials said the stolen data was obtained by a Chinese military unit called the Technical Reconnaissance Bureau in the Shandong province. The data was then passed to the state-run Aviation Industry Corp of China, an AVIC subsidiary, the Chengdu Aircraft Industry Group, used the stolen data in building the J-20, said defense and intelligence officials familiar with reports of the illicit tech transfer. rather than sort of reading the whole article, it's just coincidental that the US have got a new stealth fighter and China's got one at the same time by stealing data.
Well, the J-20...
That's why I thought it'd be interesting.
The J-20 is... they've been working on that for a while. Here is... actually, here, I think I got a couple of pictures of it. There's a photograph of it there. The J-20 has been under development for a while over there in China, and when I first saw it a couple of years ago, I said it's typical. It's a ripoff of the F-22 or the F-35. But looking at the intakes on it and how it is set up, it certainly does look like it's a ripoff of the F-35, which is not surprising since for some reason the idiots in charge of this country have decided to use Chinese parts in the damn thing, even though they're not supposed to. But that's neither here nor there. It's that's a very interesting story.
Okay, Tim, any more stories?
Yeah, well, I'm very interested in this story related to Israel caught housing an identical twin of Flight 370. This whole thing of the twin is fascinating to me. There's something satanic and demonic about this whole issue of their fascination with twins. You know, you have the twin towers, you have the twin sister ships, the Titanic and the Olympic. You have these twin airplanes. Cain and Abel were twins. Jesus was supposed to have a twin. According to the Gnostic Gospels, Didymus, Thomas, basically Thomas, Judas Thomas, means twin of the twin. Jachin and Boaz, the twin pillars of the temple, the two twin pillars supporting the temple. Look at the sign of Gemini. The symbol for the sign of Gemini is two twin pillars supporting a temple roof. Does this represent Jesus and his twin brother, Judas Thomas, the twin of the twin? You go to Srinagar in India and you'll find a tomb there that shows a crucified individual. So just like King Tut's sarcophagus, sarcophagus actually shows his effigy in full relief on the sarcophagus lid. So too with this tomb sarcophagus, do you see this crucified one engraved in the coffin lid with the stigmata wounds in the appropriate place? So was that Jesus, as many Indians believe? Was that his final resting place, or is that Judas Thomas, the twin of the twin? Well, anyway. But anyway, letting us get back to this issue of this twin plane that's been found in Tel Aviv. There is a YouTube video about it. I did send both of you the link. And the construction number for it is, I believe, 25416. It's line number 155. It's definitely a Boeing 777. Its first flight was apparently in 1998. Its age is 15.7 years. And its airframe status is simply that it's in storage. Now, given that Israel has expressed some recent concerns about Flight 370, I would say that they probably got some plan in the offing to create a false flag and to make themselves the victim. There's a common modus operandi that they have. The 9/11, of course, was blamed on the Al-Qaeda Muslim terrorist organization, but then shortly thereafter we had the anthrax attack, and the anthrax letters tried to once again frame and attribute blame to Al-Qaeda, the Muslim terrorist network, which really is a branch of the CIA since it was founded by the CIA in the first place, which itself is not an American intelligence service, but actually one in league with the Vatican. It's actually controlled by the Vatican. The secret name for the CIA is the Knights of the Holy See. They're also known as the Company, which is the same name that the Jesuits have, because they try to portray themselves as being of the Company of Jesus. So the CIA is the American branch of the Jesuit order, in essence, so the military wing of the Vatican. Very interesting false flag type scenario could be in play. The anthrax attacks, of course, as I was just mentioning, stated when the letters arrived in the office of the Hart House in Washington and the other government building. And the two first recipients of the anthrax were Senator Leahy and Senator Daschle, both of whom were strong opponents of the Patriot Act and were lobbying against it in Congress. Obviously, they were getting these letters as a threatening gesture to get them to back off and to either vote in favor of the Patriot Act or to at least stop their strong lobbying against it, or else. The letters contained were of the basic import of this is anthrax, death to America, death to Israel, Allah is great, is pretty much what the import of the letter was. So when you're framing someone, you have the benefit, of course, of escaping blame yourself and getting away with murder, and sometimes literally so. But you also have the advantage of framing your enemy, and of course, then you get two birds with one stone. You end up promoting your cause and escaping accountability, but then you also end up having your enemy targeted in some way for accountability, and so you get rid of your enemies or your opponent camp at the same time that you succeed in framing someone else. So you point the finger at someone else and you've got three fingers pointing back at you, and this is the nature of crime. So oftentimes you can see who the real culprits are by who's being accused. Anyway, there's no way that was a Muslim terrorist organization, because no self-respecting Muslim would put Allah at the bottom of the letter, since he is the creator and is regarded as preeminent. He would be referred to at the top of the letter, not the bottom. And in addition, they didn't even translate the Arabic properly, Allah Akbar, which is Allah is the greatest, or Allah is almighty. They put Allah is great, which is just the mistranslation. And there's no way any self-respecting Muslim would make a mistake of that kind, because they have to know how to refer to the Creator in the proper form, regardless of locale and regardless of what language they're employing. Because otherwise it would be to commit blasphemy against the Lord. So, who did it? The CIA. In fact, they traced the anthrax to Fort Detrick, the bioweapons laboratory in the state of Maryland. And so I find it just fascinating to see how these minions reveal their hand in all of these different operations. And you can see common MOs being reflected down through the timeline of history. In fact, when the so-called Titanic disaster struck, it was actually the sister ship, the Olympic, that went down to its watery grave, and not the Titanic. They were swapped at the last minute. Our friend John Hamer's book, HMR Olympic, is really worth the read. It's an excellent piece of research that he's put together. And what you find is that Lord John Astor, Benjamin Guggenheim, and Isidore Straus were all on board the ship, and they were all staunch opponents of the Aldrich Bill, which would create the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States the very next year in 1913. J.P. Morgan, the Vatican banker, and 54 other people canceled at the last minute, and he even had arts and other treasures being loaded on board the Titanic that were then disembarked at the last minute and didn't board the Titanic. And obviously there was an attempt to seduce certain people on board, probably a rival faction. You look at the ship, it was heading across the Atlantic to New York, which is the seat of world government power today, with the UN headquarters being in New York, founded by the Rockefeller family on land that had formerly been a cattle shed. It was for slaughtering cattle. That land was used for that purpose. When we think about the shows we've done, Andy, on how human meat has shown up in meat packing facilities and ends up in McDonald's hamburgers, cheese. I guess when they call us the Goyim, meaning the swine, they really aren't kidding. They really do regard us as the cattle. So fittingly enough, they founded the UN headquarters on a former slaughterhouse for cattle. But anyway, you can see that the League of Nations, which was the parent organization that eventually led to the later one, the UN, would be perhaps where the delegation was headed for, to attend meetings in New York, perhaps, for the founding of the League of Nations. And since there were 55 cancellations before the ship set sail, those that were intending to attend that were of the rival camp and weren't with the Luciferians, they ended up going to a watery grave, quite by design, so that they would never be able to include their input in the vision for world government that would be that of the Luciferian camp of the Illuminati. And given the names of the two ships, it seems there was a war between the gods. The Olympic and the Titanic points to the Olympians versus the Titans. The war between the gods. That was a long spiel, but I had to kind of connect the dots.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want me to play that video clip that you sent, or have you said it all on that one?
You can play it if you've got it. If you don't have it, let me send it again.
I've got it. I've converted it already, but the news from The Independent, it's the latest sort of news. It's a kind of, well, this isn't, but my comments to Bill earlier on today was, it's a who did it, where is it kind of adventure at the moment. You know, they're searching in such a wide area, they might as well be searching in China and then America the next day, back over to France, you know, and then somewhere in Christmas Island, you know. They're going all over the place like headless chickens, really, and they don't know where it is. Or, you know, the real people that's supposed to know where it is, like the public, and the media don't know where it is. Somebody knows where that plane is.
It's a wild goose chase, and it's meant to be a wild goose chase. I mean, they might as well call it Operation Wild Goose Chase. When I remember in Romeo and Juliet, they referred to the Wild Goose Club, which was Francis Bacon's secret writing ministry, which was also known as the Honorable Order of the Knights of the Helmet, which was also known as Fra Rosie Cross, Francis Rosie Cross, because he was a Rosicrucian and a Freemason himself. I realized that these intelligence services that are in charge of operations like this, it's massive black ops. You have so many competing theories on what's happened to this plane, and quite by design. And I always know that there's something afoot when you've got so many competing conspiracy theory-related stories to one particular event. It's clear that they're trying to muddy the waters, to confuse the public, to leave everyone in a state of complete perplexity and confusion where they throw up their hands in despair and go, what the hell is happening here? And quite by design, because they want people to be led astray in a wild goose chase so that they haven't a clue what's going on. And all these researchers and journalists are being given a red herring. They're on a wild goose chase. They're going in all directions. And you can rest assured that none of those directions lead to Rome. None of them are going to get them to look at where things really are at. They're all meant to be decoy operations, all of them orchestrated distractions meant to get you off the proper trail and just chasing your own tail, going around and around in circles on a wild goose chase that leads nowhere. And it's by intention and by design. And by the time they orchestrate what it is that they're actually planning, it will be too late.
Yeah, this is true because there's only one aircraft. I don't remember the details, but then they'll come on to the latest news, then I'll play that clip. But there was one plane, remember, it did disappear. But I think they found within a few days that, yes, it sunk, but we can't get it up. But at least they knew roughly where it was. You know, that was the only plane ever to have been, relatives can't mourn something that's at the bottom of the ocean, but at least within a few days they knew it was at some point in the ocean. And anyway, now they've come up with this new debris. They've found some debris. The Chinese have found some debris. They're not saying if it's linked to the aircraft, but it is red and white. Sorry, red and orange. I'll correct that. They were coloured white, red and orange, respectively, and a statement on Saturday morning said, the sighting followed reports of multiple objects of various colours by international flight crews on Friday. So the search will resume Sunday morning, which will be not too far away now in their time, but there's no confirmation anyway. That's the latest update in the last hour. So I'll play that clip if I can find it. There we go.
All right, guys, Dabu 7, March 27, 2014. And it's this type of information that needs to be heard by the world, and unfortunately probably will not be on the mainstream media. But nonetheless, we're going to try to get it out there so everyone can see. On my backup channel here that you see, I put out a video, and this video is huge in pertaining to Flight 370. Now, I've touched on the facts time and time again, and I'm talking facts here, that since this thing went missing, only one country has jumped the gun, paranoid, and raised their defenses over this missing plane, and that was Israel. Also, Israel, for the first time in history, decided to close down all of their embassies and consulates worldwide. Okay, a lot of suspicious activity. So what I did is I decided to start digging and looking to see if anyone in this world could possibly have their hands on a Malaysian aircraft that looks just like Flight 370. The odds of finding planes that don't work from Malaysia Airlines are kind of slim. There's not a whole lot of these things out there. Malaysia Airlines airplane force isn't massive. So to find one in a hangar that actually works and is just sitting there is highly suspicious. Now, what if I told you that we found exactly that in, of all places on this planet where it could be sitting? It is sitting in Tel Aviv, Israel. This is the silver bullet, I believe, in this whole case, connecting these culprits, these suspects. They are the ones acting suspect and very suspicious. And all of a sudden now, out of any country in the world, Israel is housing inside of Tel Aviv a twin, an identical twin, except for the serial numbers to this plane. So even if it did go down in the ocean and they never find it, and everyone's left always wondering, this plane right here is active in the possession of Israel. What are the odds of that? I do not believe in coincidence. I explain it all in detail in this video. All of the links are left on the backup channel in that video for this. Okay? Even the stuff I'm about to show you. The reason being, for those of you that are hip and know how it works here on YouTube, when they come clamping down on you and stripping information, they like to ban links. And if your video is connected to those links, they will ban that video. And sometimes your channel gets taken down. So that's why it's on the backup channel, because of all the detail that's involved in it. Everything will be there. We'll obviously have the comments open on this video. But this needs to be heard by everybody. It needs to be on the table, and it needs to be seen. Everyone needs to realize that Israel is in possession of an identical twin to Flight 370. What are the odds of that, guys? And I do not like it. And I'll just show you here. This is the exact plane that Israel has in its possession. The exact plane by plane spotters. And, you know, thankfully for these guys doing their job out there, you can see that this plane, 28416, this Boeing, it's 15 years old, is being stored, and you can even look at its old registration and new registration and match them up and see that this thing was delivered and stored November 4th, 2013 in Tel Aviv. I will be digging deep into this. Who owns this company? You guessed it. Connected to George Soros through and through, Israel through and through, and it's mind-blowing. I can guarantee you this much. As a backup, we go over here to Planewalker, a whole nother website, match up the same registration and numbers, and sure enough in the comment section, right here, November 4th, this thing landed and has never been seen since in Tel Aviv, Israel, folks. Malaysia Airlines, that is an identical twin to the missing Flight 370. All these photos are of that exact plane that went missing inside of Israel, never to be seen again. So imagine that. Let me know what you guys think, because I think this is huge. This has been Dabu 7, Eyes Open.
Well, thank you very much, my friend. I was just going to play a promo, but I couldn't find it.
freedomtalkradio.co.uk.
Let's go!
This is the most diverse, most amazing, one of the funniest radio stations you could ever listen to on the internet. I've heard so much stuff from the ups, the downs, the left, the right.
The politics, the non-politics, the schmolitics, whatever you want to call them.
It's great.
You're listening to Freedom Talk Radio. We are dedicated to providing free access to our internet network. If you would like to get involved, contact us in any of the following ways. Go to freedomtalkradio.net/contact-us to contact us in writing. That's freedomtalkradio.net/contact-us. Or you can email us at freedomtalkradio2013@gmail.com or info@freedomtalkradio.net. Be sure to tune in for some of our exciting shows. On Monday, tune in from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. for The Truth Police with Andy Peacher and Tim Spearman. On Tuesdays, be sure to check out Tim Clark's End Time Matrix News from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Then, stay tuned for Andy Peacher's Musicians and Bands show from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. On Thursdays, from 2 to 4 p.m., it's Andy Peacher's Families Reunited show. Friday is a busy day on freedomtalkradio.net as we get the weekend off to a great start. From 12 noon to 2 p.m., Once again, it's Tim Clark's End Times Matrix News. From 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., it's the Cosmic College with Sasha and Janet Lesson. Heat up your weekends on Saturdays from 12 noon to 2 p.m. with the Knights of Liberty show with Andy Peacher and Tim Spearman. And then, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., Bill Zam is surrounded by idiots. So be sure to tune in to all of our shows on freedomtalkradio.net.
Thanks for listening to the Knights of Liberty show live with Andy Peacher from the UK and Timothy Spearman from Canada. Saturdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 5 p.m. UK time. Find the Knights of Liberty radio show on Facebook or visit Tim's website at www.shakespeare.com or visit www.lulu.com. Search for Timothy Spearman and find his book Sailing the Seven Seas, Butterfly Dreams and Odds On Favourite. Visit the station's website at www.freedomtalkradio.co.uk or email the show at freedomtalkradio2013@gmail.com. Skype us at Freedom Talk Radio 1. Thanks for listening to the Knights of Liberty show.
Yeah, and welcome back to the Knights of Liberty show with Tim and Andy and our special guest Bill Zam. How'd you like the promos then, Tim?
Sounds really nice. Very good.
I deliberately use .net and .co.uk because it's kind of, we are a network, but for the people who like .co.uk, they can type that in, and people who want it quick and easy can type .net in, so it all links up to the same place.
That's great. So, do we still have Bill with us?
Yeah, don't know if he's got any more stories, but he's here somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I can see him talking now.
Yeah.
He's grabbing a quick drink.
Okay. So, let's see. Paul Volcker. Remember Paul Volcker? He was active back in Margaret Thatcher days and Ronald Reagan days. So, while you had your economic policies over there, which were in lockstep with those of the United States, Paul Volcker was the head of the Federal Reserve Bank at the time. So we had Reaganomics and what did you have over there? Thatcheronomics, something like that.
Thatcherism, I think we called it.
Thatcherism, right. So, anyway, it was really Volckerism. Paul Volcker was the head of the Federal Reserve Bank at the time, and they were lending money to countries in South America so that they could purchase oil during the oil crisis, and then charged exorbitant rates of interest through a monetary policy that he invoked, which ended up getting all those countries in severe hock so that they couldn't pay off the debt. And so if you ever wondered what happened to the poor Brazilian rainforest, then you can realize that it was a power grab scheme and a resource grab scheme and just seize the collateral on the debt since they can't repay. Anyway, if you're wondering why the big banks were fighting so hard against the Volcker rule over the past 5 years, you're about to find out. So as of April 1st, isn't that a funny date? April Fool's Day. The rule goes into effect, so it's claimed. I wonder if this is an April Fool's joke. Anyway, the highlights when the final regulations prohibit banks from engaging in short-term proprietary trading of certain securities, derivatives, commodity features, and options on these instruments for their own accounts, impose limits on banks' investments in and other relations with hedge funds and private equity funds, provide exemptions for certain activities, including market-making related activities, underwriting, risk-mitigating hedging, trading and government obligations, insurance company activities, and organizing and offering hedge funds and private equity funds. Clarify that certain activities are not prohibited, including acting as agent, broker, or custodian. Scale compliance requirements based on the size of the bank and the scope of the activities. Larger banks are required to establish detailed compliance programs, and their chief executive officers must attest to the OCC that the bank's programs are reasonably designed to achieve compliance with the final regulations. Smaller banks engaged in modest activities are subject to a simplified compliance program. So what do all these restrictions do? Well, history has shown that you can't have an unbacked fiat monetary system without controlling the prices of some key commodities and monetary instruments. Gold, silver, oil, and the US dollar are the main ones. That's where market rigging with computers and derivatives came into play in the 1970s. That is why the top 5 banks, JP Morgan, Citibank, B of A, Goldman and Morgan Stanley hold over $295 trillion in derivatives. It's the only reason that the unbacked system is still viable. This unbacked system has lasted over 40 years after breaking all ties with gold, an unprecedented record in monetary history, and only made possible by the computer market rigging programs written in the 1960s by then Fed Chairman, later Fed Chairman Alan Greenspan. So then there's Greenspan's golden secret. I should send you the link for that, Andy and Bill. So what do you got story-wise, Andy? Follow up?
Well, we're going to go on to Bill's got an article where the Leyland Yee or the Leyland Lee story.
Yes, there's, I don't know if the two of you have heard this, but there's been some big news with the FBI here in this country, with a whole bunch of politicians being rounded up and arrested here in the country. As it turns out, all of them are Democrats. They did not round up any Republicans. And the big one was a fellow by the name of Leland Yee. He's a San Francisco state senator out of California. And he was, if you've ever watched the Piers Morgan show when it was on CNN, he was Piers Morgan's go-to guy on gun restrictions, about how bad they are and how we need to get the guns out of the hands of people so that there's less crime. Well, Leland Yee was picked up for gun smuggling, believe it or not. He actually was attempting to sell not only fully automatic weapons, but shoulder-fired missiles that he was procuring from Muslim separatists in the Philippines. And he was involved with a whole bunch of Chinese triad people in Chinatown in San Francisco. And it's turned into a real mess for the Democrats out in California and around the entire country. But what surprises me about this story, guys, is this. With every other one of these FBI stings that we've had in the past 5 or 6 years, there's always been the shills that jump out right away and say, well, look at that. The FBI managed to foil yet another plot that they came up with themselves. But this time, nobody's saying anything of the sort. Everybody is real quiet about this. which is very, very surprising to me. But I look at it that there are a couple of different possibilities here. It could be that the FBI picked these people up in order to be able to clear out the riffraff in time for the midterm elections in this coming November. Don't forget that the FBI is part of the Justice Department, which is run by Eric Holder, and we know the sorts of things that he's been up to with prosecuting and not prosecuting certain crimes that have been committed. But another train of thought, the one that I'm leaning towards, is this. They're doing this now so that the public and the media essentially forgets about it by the time November comes around. And then in October, they're going to start rounding up Republicans, like any good banana republic would do, in order to gin the vote for the November elections so that the Democrats will win the elections and keep control of the entirety of the government, get back to Congress and keep the Senate. So it's a very interesting story, especially with Leland Yee here. He is it's one of those cases where you've got the guy that's the go-to person about one particular aspect, and this particular aspect is gun control. And it turns out behind the scenes he's running guns himself, which is, it's like the anti-pedophile congressman getting picked up for having pedophilia photographs on his computer. It's a very interesting turn of events that we've had here, and it's I suspect that come October or so, we're going to see some more arrests from the other side of the political spectrum. And that's my big story for the week.
That is a huge story. That's a very important story because obviously the reason he was supporting Piers Morgan's attempt to promote this idea of Americans giving up their Second Amendment gun rights and giving up their guns, but at the same time peddling guns through the Chinese triad rings operating in California. Similar things have happened up in British Columbia, and the Chinese call British Columbia Gold Mountain. They want it. This is an attempt on the part of the Chinese to make inroads into a military invasion. And I think the UN is sponsoring this in part, and obviously the Illuminati are hoping that Mexican and Chinese troops can invade and take over the United States. And they're trying desperately to get Americans to give up their guns. And obviously he has an interest in doing that as well. In the meantime, all these guns that are being smuggled in from the Muslim terrorist organizations that you say were operating in the Philippines, well, that's because all those so-called Muslim terrorist organizations aren't Muslim terrorist organizations, but are once again run by the CIA and controlled out of the Vatican with its typical tactics of divide and conquer. And ultimately, all these guns are being smuggled in because there's Chinese sleeper agents in California, and they're intending on going at it with the American public. They want to invade. And the UN is letting them, and it's an Illuminati plot to impose a communist-style dictatorial government in North America that is Chinese style. And that's what I read into this. And I know that there's sleeper agents in British Columbia that are up to the same business. And I have a colleague that's warned our immigration police and the RCMP about this. And basically there's been weapons caches that have been discovered in warehouses all along the west coast of North America that have been smuggled in on Chinese ships. And they go into storage in warehouse facilities, and the guns slowly leak into the hands of the sleeper agents that are located all along the West Coast. And no doubt these guns are being peddled further inland in Chinese communities in other parts of North America, so that they're all being dispensed. And when the stuff hits the fan, you can rest assured that these sleeper agents will already be in place, ready to go when the UN troops come in, which will probably be Mexican and Chinese. So unless we spread the word and get this information out, I think this is what's in play. I think this is exactly what they're intending. And of course, Obama is a communist secretly, and he's colluding with all this. And Harper as well. Our prime minister up here is colluding and signing all kinds of trans-Pacific trade agreements, which are treacherous. They're traitors. They're selling us out. How do you think about that for a read? Are you thinking there's any sense to that at all, Bill?
Actually, I do. I was listening to what you were saying. I would not put any of that beyond the realm of possibility at all. This Leland Yee case could just be the tip of the proverbial iceberg, as if these reports are indeed accurate that there are weapons caches all up and down the West Coast. That would make sense. We've been hearing rumors and conspiracies for years about secret Chinese bases in Mexico and whatnot. What the hell they're waiting for, who knows? Maybe they're waiting for the Second Amendment to be struck down or something like that. In a related story, I see that there's a new survey out that the vast majority of Americans, I believe it's something like 80%, feel much safer having a firearm in their homes to be able to protect themselves. And I feel very, very safe, given the results of that survey. And I don't think they're going to be able to get around or circumvent or kill the Second Amendment. It just simply is not going to happen in the United States. You see these states that are trying to do it now, New York, and the other state, I forget which, is it New Hampshire or Connecticut? I forget which one. Most of the people just didn't bother registering their guns. Just said, screw you. You want them? You come and get them. We're not going to do it. And that's basically what's going to happen nationwide. So they're going to have literally millions and millions of people not complying with their stupid ideas. And that's going to be our, that's going to be our final defense, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And of course, you can see this hypocritical nature of the whole endeavor, because how are you diminishing gun violence when you're actually making sure that you've got an overkill availability of weaponry on your side with an overkill, cache of bullets to go with them that could kill the American population 3 times over. And you're telling us that you want to diminish or restrict gun violence, yet it's okay for you, the government, the so-called government, to invoke gun violence against the people, and if they're not willingly and compliantly prepared to hand over their guns, you're prepared to come at gunpoint to the home and insist. How is this in any way diminishing gun violence, you hypocrite? And how dare you? And it's just sickening. And anyone can see through it. It's just an attempt to impose martial law and a communist-style dictatorial government of the Chinese stripe. And anyone who can't see it is just simply brain dead or had too much fluoride in the water.
And I'll also point out that this Leland Yee thing, he was trying to bring in fully automatic weapons. And I don't know anybody in my circle of influence that has privately held fully automatic weapons. The citizens, and I think it is a good idea not to have fully automatic weapons. especially since they can fall in the hands of the criminals. And as a follow-up to that, Tim, I'll say that every year we hear about we have hunting season here in the United States. We have deer and bear and other game animals that people eat, but here between Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, we have a standing citizenry of over 1 million people that have firearms that they use for hunting, and that's just 3 states. Multiply that by 50. In Alaska, everybody that essentially goes outside has a firearm. In Texas, you have open carry laws where people can carry, and in Florida, you can carry your sidearm out in public without any issues. I just can't see them taking away the firearms from the private citizens. I mean, I just can't see it happening other than through violence, like you said.
Right. So you can see now why the Obama administration and Feinstein and all these creeps, which are traitors to the United States. Well, Feinstein's just a Zionist agent and a Mossad agent. I mean, she's not even an American. Let's get real, And how is it that there was such a disproportionate number of Israeli actors involved in the Sandy Hook? I mean, come on, they're not... Well, Connecticut's not exactly chock-a-block full of Jewish people. Like, why were there such a disproportionate number of Jewish people being interviewed in relation to Sandy Hook? Because they're not American. Whether they got American citizenship or not, they're working for a foreign government. And you want to accuse me of anti-Semitic? Take off the gloves. I'm ready to go. I'm not anti-Semitic. And, this is clearly just... a foreign government that's making attempts to destroy the United States and to have it become a communist-style state of the Chinese stripe. And this guy, what a hypocrite, this Yi character, this senator out there in California. I mean, obviously this is the whole aim here, isn't it? You've got Obama trying to pass legislation to restrict assault rifles and to only allow for something like hunting rifles to be in the hands of the Americans. Yet this creep is bringing in the worst forms of assault rifles that would be able to target innocent American citizens. Clearly, it's an attempt by the Chinese to invade. I'm totally sold on that theory, and if anyone disputes it, well... go back to sleep. That's exactly what's going on here, Bill.
I will accept that theory at face value. I have no information to disagree with you with.
Yeah, well, I'm very concerned about my friends in the United States, and please do not give up your guns and get ready. If you need my help, just call me.
If they'll let you into the country.
Yeah, right.
There's that border to get across first. How do you feel about swimming across Lake Erie?
Yeah, I might just go down to Windsor and swim across the river to Detroit and come in that way. Maybe I shouldn't tell them my plan. Maybe I'll take a tightrope walk across Niagara Falls to Niagara Falls, New York. That's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, you won't get any attention doing that at all.
Oh, no.
And I believe Andy is waiting in the wings to say something.
Yeah, we're hoping to get Tim across here in the UK in the summer. It'd be nice to see him if he can get over. We're going to have a medieval banquet for him when he comes.
Yeah, that'll be a good idea. With the wenches at my disposal and a bit of mead and throwing the chicken bones over my shoulder.
Yeah, we're going to have a car for a week, so if you did manage to come, being picked up from airport and travelling around, I can do that, for you. And we're all going to stay at Mummy Maggie's. Bill, you'll meet Maggie in an audio clip in a few minutes. So shall I go ahead then and start talking about something that's passionate to my heart? And I get fed up when I can't do a lot about it.
I say have at it.
I'm going to have to get off my chest, otherwise it wouldn't be fair on the children or me. Well, a couple of years ago, the UK said to us in the BBC News article, major changes to investigate missing children in the UK needs to change. So child protection experts are to lead the hunt for the UK's missing children. Now, the only problem with that is, from a parent's point of view, of course, and from alternative media, I don't think the child protection people are the right people to look for the missing kids, because it's for that very reason the kids are missing in most of the cases. Now, the figures I've got is 10% of all children in care that run away or go missing, never to be found again. So 10% of all children in the UK that go missing are from the care system. The figures are 100,000 plus children they're not necessarily in care, but they go missing. And 10% of them also, so 10,000 go missing and never to be seen. 10,000 children in care that go missing, 10% of them are never going to be seen. Anyway, it said from July 2012 they would integrate with existing services to form one body, the Child Exploitation and Online Protection, CEOPS agency. Again, I feel that because they are all linked in this country alone, I know in America the system actually works very good when they're all working together, but in this country I think it's not the right thing to do. You should have one independent agency looking for the kids that go missing, work with the police of course, but I don't think they should work with social workers, court officials, judges, the people who kind of steal the children. Anyway, the new team will work with police, non-governmental agencies, and the wider child protection community, but they mean social workers on that. So they go into drugs and prostitution quite often. Wednesday, in this article, it says it's International Missing Children's Day, and Missing People plans to send out a new appeal for a missing child on Twitter every 30 minutes. Minister for Crime and Security, James Brockenshire, said around, well, I got my figures wrong a little bit, 230,000 children go missing.
230,000?
Yeah, but I think, my figures are based on the children who go away today and then they're found 5 hours later. Them figures are not in this. Or they might go away today and they'll come back tomorrow morning. They've just been down the road at Auntie's. I'm talking about children that go away for more than 24 hours and never come back, or at least are found days and weeks later, or months, or never at all. So, yeah, the figures are slightly different in this article. The risks children are exposed to are severe, and the harm they suffer can be very serious. So it's crucial we can act quickly. The new agency will provide preventive support to children and adults through educational tools and aims to harness the expertise of police. The new agency is also working with Lady Catherine Mayer of the charity Parents and Abducted Children Together, PACT. I am allowed to say, and I've got to say it in a different way, our founder of the charity Children Screaming to Be Heard.com started the Prisoners' Wives Association back in the 70s, 80s. It then went through different changes, and then the new founder changed the name. And don't recognise Maggie Tuttle, but PACT, in fact, was a branch off, as it were, of Maggie Tuttle's prisoner and prisoner wives organisation. Anyway, she told the BBC, when a child goes missing, it will have a much bigger chance to be exploited, get into drugs, prostitution. So the fact that you're moving missing, the issues of missing into child exploitation is going to be very helpful, plus for the data collection. Anyway, I think I don't totally agree with the agencies working with social workers. I'm going to read another bit before I play a clip. missingkids.co.uk/missing, missingkids.co.uk. And it's heart-wrenching to read these sort of websites. There's not much to be seen on this one, but it is a good independent website where people can advertise their abducted child or missing child. We have 2 or 3 days ago, Alani Goodfella, 17, missing. Whereas Shannon Bertolini in Hertfordshire, on the 18th, she's 14, missing. Annika Edwards and so on. Abigail Hartley, Karim Nashed, Lily, and the list goes on. And it's, why are kids going missing in the UK? There's obviously a few reasons why are kids going missing globally. There's obviously a few reasons, and we know, well, pardon the joke, I mean, some of them end up in burgers, some end up killing themselves, some end up obviously running away out of the country because they're trafficked. They belong to paedophile rings, and some of them are murdered. Now, there's a website now called, I'm sorry if I'm going too quick, but I'm just sort of giving you brief facts here. A website now called facts.randomhistory.com, and that's facts.randomhistory.com. 48 interesting facts about missing people. Every 40 seconds, a child goes missing in the US. Well, that's 3 minutes, in the UK. In the UK, it's every 3 minutes. In the US, it's every 40 seconds. When a child goes missing, the first 3 hours are the most crucial in finding the child safely. Approximately 76% of abducted children are murdered, are dead within 3 hours of the abduction. Point 3, it can take over 2 hours to get the information about a missing child from a panicked parent. Anyway, every year more than 800,000 children are missing each year in the US. Over here it's 100,000 plus. A person can be declared dead in absentia or legally dead after 7 years of being listed as missing. This time can be reduced in certain cases, such as in mass disasters. Pardon me. In 1980, roughly 150,000 people reported missing per year. Now the number is 900,000. There's a lot of facts on this website, but it does mention the UK, again, having 230,000. Maybe that's an up-to-date fact. It's very scary that we live in a world where we've got these people like Freemasonry, and I think this website says that it's a shield that protects the elite paedophile rings that go unpunished in the UK. They are Freemasons, and they're protecting their own, and they're not bothered about the children. Politicians, judges and police have allegedly abused children in the care homes of North Wales dodged justice because they were Freemasons. David Cameron, a few years back, 3 years now, he's hosted a Freemason event at Westminster. And David Cameron, Philip Schofield, Keith Gregory of the Wrexham childcare abuse system. It's been reported. Sorry, it's missing. Oh dear. Anyway, going back to reality now. A friend of ours from the northeast of England, and his name's Brian. He knows all about this detention centre. It's a final article I will read. It's Medhamsley Detention Centre. So if a child doesn't end up in the care system in one of these care homes or shipped from one care home to the other because it's making financial gain to each social work department or foster care stroke adoption agency, if they're lucky, they'll go home after a while. If not, they'll stay in these foster carers who'll ship them around, or they may even end up in a institutional care home. And we know from Brian and my wife, they've been in these homes and they've not been very nice to what the staff have done to them. They've basically been raped in their own little right, in their own right when they were children. Now, some of the poor kids end up in detention centres called Medhamsley up in the northeast of England. But sadly, in the 80s, there was a paedophile ring that may have abused hundreds. The clip in a minute I'll play on Medhamsley will explain it a lot better than I will. Then we've got two further clips. And then that's it. Hundreds of vulnerable boys at a detention centre may have been abused by a paedophile ring in the 70s, 80s. Please fear. Now, this came out only yesterday, 28th of March, in the evening. The Durham Police Force said it was shocked after getting hundreds of calls after a BBC programme about sexual and physical abuse was shown in January 2014. A spokeswoman said there were now up to 500 victims claiming physical or sexual abuse at the juvenile centre. 2 members of staff at the centre were jailed in 2003 and 2005. Durham Police said many former inmates who had been in touch since the BBC Inside Out programme was shown were not getting counselling. This is very true. Some organisations will throw money at the victims, the survivors. Some will say get on with life. But I think what they really need deep down is counselling and an admission, really. What happened to them will not happen to other people in the future. The majority of men in this detention centre, about 340, claim they were physically assaulted. 160 said they were sexually abused. The centre closed in 1988 after the abuse came to light. Neil Husband, who worked at the detention centre as a prison officer, was jailed for 12 years in 2003. And Leslie Johnson, the storeman, was sentenced to 6 years in 2005. Now, very sadly, with UK law, I don't know if you want to comment on this after all the clips, but Neville Husband, he was a prison officer. He was sentenced to 12 years under UK law because he's a paedophilia supporter and it's a Freemason supporter. So 12 years you'll spend officially, if you're good, 6 years under the banner of the prison department. Now, if you're still good, within that period, and you reach 3 years in prison from what you did, you'll come out on an electronic tag. Okay, you're further monitored for 3 years, but you've got your liberty back, basically. A 12-year sentence only gives you 3 years in imprisonment in the UK. I think that's absolutely shocking. I mean, there's that old saying, you do the crime, you do your time. But it's very sad that what's going on. Anyway, a very short clip from Medhamsley Detention Centre. It's a news article. And then we'll hear about every UK paedophile is a Freemason.
I'm sure they hate.
Medonsley Detention Centre in the 1980s. At the time, the Conservative government talked of a short, sharp shock for young lawbreakers.
These will be no holiday camps, and I sincerely hope that those who attend them will not ever want to go back there.
But in a village in the hills of County Durham, there was also terrible physical and sexual abuse of inmates, much of it at the hands of a prison officer called Neville Husband.
At any one time, about 70 young men were held here, but the detention centre closed in the late 1980s. But by that time, many lives have been blighted by the brutality here.
I feel betrayed. I feel let down. And I am angry.
10 years ago, prison officer Neville Husband was jailed for abusing inmates. He has since died. But that wasn't the end of the police inquiry. It reopened last year when more allegations were made by former prisoners. 143 men have now come forward to say they were physically or sexually abused at Medonsley Detention Centre. New charges may now follow. 30 years on, the horror of what happened here is yet to fully emerge. Danny Savage, BBC News, Medonsley.
Well, joining me now is Councillor Keith Gregory, who you just saw in that report from Kieran Jenkins, and Bill Brereton, a former Deputy Police Commissioner here in North Wales. Well, Keith Gregory, do you have any confidence now that you'll be listened to and believed in these latest inquiries?
I'm quite hopeful. I'm quite confident, to be honest, now that the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary and the Welsh Assembly have promised not to leave no stones unturned, and that I'm quite hopeful.
The Waterhouse inquiry promised that though last time. What gives you that hope that things will be different now?
I think people have changed the views that people used to think about.
The culture's changed.
Yeah, culture change. That's what it is.
Bill Brereton, we've had dozens of police investigations, more than a dozen council inquiries, the Waterhouse report, all of these inquiries, and yet so few convictions. Why do you think that is?
I think there's lots of reasons. I mean, for me, the way forward is quite probably to have an outside source investigation, and that's been called for, as I understand it. I think it's very important that right up front, everyone is required to declare whether they have been or currently are a Mason. Section 81 of the Waterhouse report touches on it very fleetingly. It may or may not be a problem, but let's have it out in the open and make sure that people know what's going on.
Well, because the Masons were, and maybe still are, very powerful here. I mean, do you think there were people being protected by pillars of the establishment?
I don't know. I mean, there's an investigation to be done, and clearly that's not me because I'm retired. But the fact that the questions there needs solving, it needs clearing once and for all, and the suggestion that there could be undue influences has to be dealt with. I was never a Mason, never have been, never will be, and I was always very clear on that, and therefore it never touched upon me. But I think it's that concern that if you don't know, you just don't know what's going on in the background.
Keith Gregory, is the Masons an avenue that needs to be investigated?
Masons definitely need to be investigated, especially in North Wales. I think nearly everyone, especially on the list that I have, are all members of some sort of Masonic lodge.
The Prime Minister's spoken today about the danger of a witch hunt. And you've got to say that a lot of these allegations relate to many decades ago. You're relying on people's memories. How much of a concern do you think that is?
I don't think it'll ever turn into a witch hunt. I hope it doesn't. But we are getting people coming forward, really upset people.
Do you think it's the scale of allegations about the past that is emerging now? It's not a witch hunt, but it's just the scale of people who've been affected by this that you're interested in? Yeah,
it's genuine, honest people coming forward with a story to tell, which they were never allowed to do last time.
Bill Brereton, you think there's a danger of witch hunt?
Well, I think any society should be judged how it deals with vulnerable people. And as I understand it, the Prime Minister said something about gays. This isn't about gays, it's about paedophilia, which is, it's a completely different issue. Two consenting adults, fine, but, this is not that. And I think, it's the test of society is how we deal with people who are vulnerable. And these are vulnerable people, and they weren't treated properly, and they should be.
Bill Burton, Keith Gregory, thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, so that was about the paedophilia and the Freemasons, that they're all probably linked, as we know, comments later. And incidentally, over in the UK, and it's nothing against the gays, but they can now marry as husband and husband legally without that agreement to... there's another agreement, I forgot what it's called, but from midnight today, UK time, they can now marry as husband and husband. I guess if it's lesbians, and this is not making fun of them, but I guess if it's lesbians being married, they can be called wife and wife. They never mentioned that. They just mentioned gay men can be husband and husband. So whatever your thoughts on that, it's about equal, rights, and if that's, an equal right for them, then God bless them. Right, moving on to the children in the care system. Now, the only person really at the end of the day can tell us all about this, and what I've been trying to say for many years is our Maggie Tuttle. It is based on a Christmas theme, but it is a message to David Cameron. I don't know if Tim's ever heard this one before, but it's an amazing fact of really all summed up in a 15-minute audio clip. This is what happens to children in the care system. And Maggie, go ahead.
This Christmas, and what have you done? Another year over, and a new one just begun. And so this is Christmas.
My name is Maggie Tuttle. I'm the founder of the charity Children Screaming to Be Heard. The silent witnesses. Here lies the truth. I've been asked to send a message from the untold thousands of children in the care system, and from the thousands of grandparents, fathers, parents, mothers, all with no rights to their beloved children. This message is sent to the Prime Minister, Mr. Cameron, and all the children's ministers, social services, social workers, health casts, the lawyers, judges, and all experts in a child's best interest. We would like to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And our thanks also go to all of the judges who sit in their high chairs, half asleep, because they know long before the case ends, another child is already earmarked for the care system. Then the judges will pass sentence in the closed family court with gagging orders on many families with the threat of prison. So you all enjoy your Christmas and try to remember we the children, the families, fathers have passed, grandparents, mothers have nothing to celebrate. We are alone. And for many of us, we live day to day in fear of the unknown. We have no Christmas. And so the end of another year, 2013, and another Christmas. And for us, thousands of children in the care system, we are all alone, with many of us who are being abused. We are the silent witnesses, and in 2009, Jack Straw, gags us children in the care system from reporting any form of abuse. And here lies the truth, with our little voices, wishes, wants, and our human rights still being denied by the courts of law, who sentence us, the children, to the unknown. All children are allocated by the court a lawyer and a CAPCAS officer to be the voices for the children. This is far from the truth. We children remain the silent witnesses, and CAPCAS and children's lawyers should be brought to account. They are not there for the children, but for their own pockets. There are thousands of families that the social services kidnap their children on the most horrendous allegations. For many families, if they had their stolen children, Christmas time, it would be a happy time. But let us also remember that many parents who have committed suicide, rather than to live without the child they so loved and was accused of hurting. But for the families whose children are in care, they live from day to day, year in and year out, in the unknown, not knowing if the child is being abused, trafficked, prostituted, or dead. There are many children in the care system who do need the protection, and many parents who do and have abused their kids, with many such as the baby P case. But I personally believe cases like the baby P and others are allowed to happen for a reason. That being, on the back of the cases such as baby P, that thousands of more children are taken into care on emotional or future emotional abuse. And should people read into the multi-billion-pound children's industry, then here lies the truth with the silent witnesses. And for many children in care, there are many good foster carers, but what needs to be addressed urgently are the facts and figures of kids who are abused by many foster carers, and should these children speak out, they are continually moved around and grow up with no stability whatsoever. And with many kids from care, government figures state 49% are in the prisons, many thousands in detention centres, and as I have witnessed, thousands of kids from care living in cardboard boxes on the streets. When in truth, thousands of children in care are denied the right to live with grandparents or a close relative due to the fact that grandparents are free and do not generate money and jobs in a system that Adolf Hitler coined from the phrase, in a child's best interest. Mr. Cameron, I have all the letters here that I wrote to you. And on June the 9th, 2009, before the elections, I wrote to you asking for grandparents' rights, and to say, if you give grandparents rights, I will personally try to make sure that every grandparent came and voted. At the same time, Mr. Clegg and Mr. Ed Balls, who was the children's minister, used my suggestion and via the media, and here, this is Mr. Balls, 19th of January 2010. Then we have Mr. Clegg, 17th of June 2010. And we have lots of, it's all in the media, But via the media, you blackmailed all grandparents to vote, and we did, because our grandchildren are the seeds of love planted for the next generation, and you and all have taken away many thousands of grandchildren into a system that states, by Mr. Hitler, in a child's best interest. Thousands of grandparents have sold their homes to pay legal fees, to ask the courts for a residence order, as opposed to the grandchildren being put into care. Then only to be denied for many grandparents. Then also denied by the social workers any form of contact with many grandparents, to be sent to their graves, never to see a child again that they so loved. Because, Mr. Cameron, although you continually say how important the families are, you will not ever blackmail the grandparents again or vote in the next election, May 2015. And to all grandparents I say, do not ever trust Mr. Cameron again. But would he care? No. He has his family and servants, and to hell with us, the flex. And it's Christmas time. He would say, I have my family and friends with an 11% pay rise for all MPs. Wow, more money from the taxpayers. Sadly, Nelson Mandela recently died. What a shame Mr. Cameron and others in government could not have the same values that Mr. Mandela had. He was a true, honest man who went to prison for 27 years for justice for the people and for children. Do you think Mr. Cameron would go to prison for 27 minutes for the nation? No. He stays in the SS to tell the court to put gagging orders on families and to send them to prison. Yes, send the families to prison on trumped-up allegations of contempt of court, with no doors to open for the children and families in the UK. But if people were to listen and take strength and take note from what Mr. Mandela said, then we need to come together to be a voice to protect the children. Martin Luther King, another great man who said, I have a dream, and with the people, he made the dream. I, Maggie Tuttle, I also have a dream. I ask the nation to come together to help protect the children being stolen on allegations and sent into the unknown, and to put a stop to the families wrongly accused of child abuse, and to change the family courts. We must come together as a nation, and we must put a stop to the paedophiles who are in their thousands. And for many, it is by the foster and adoption system, paedophiles have access to the kids in care. I have had many, many reports by the helpline of the kids who were in care, who were sexually abused, with many now having to live the rest of their life with HIV. When is Mr. Cameron going to wise up and bring a private investigation into the social workers and social services who are given the powers to rule the lives of the people from the young to the old? And what about the Italian lady recently reported? They cut her open and stole her baby for adoption. How wicked can the British government be? From the children screaming to be heard, I again wrote in 2012 to Mr. Cameron and to the chairman of the BBC, asking for a monument in memory of all the children, past and present, who in the care of the social services have been sold, trafficked, gone missing, been used by the paedophiles, murdered, and the bodies sold for experiments, and Mr. Cameron has not once acknowledged the letter. The BBC also will not acknowledge the monument, but they support the fostering and the adoption agency. Oh, I wonder why. Well, yes, the BBC and the paedophiles. Of course, no one wants to plead guilty and let the world know, buy a monument for the abused children, and admit that dear old England has for years abused, murdered, trafficked, prostituted the children of England, and now the children of Europe. So, Mr. Cameron, from all of the children stolen and lost in a child's best interest, meaning the care system, for most of us, this time of year should be a happy time. But for us kids, we have no contact at all with the members of our families. Fathers, mothers, grandparents. We children are all alone, and for many of us kids, we were also denied to see Santa, to see Santa Claus. Perhaps had we spoken to Santa Claus, he may have made our wishes come true and sent us all home to our families. But we kids can only dream. As all know, there are no doors to open to our families and to be loved. But one day, yes, our wishes will come true and we will go home. But for many of us kids, for the years we lived in a child's best interest, we have been so damaged with no love, no affection, no families, no grandparents, no bedtime stories. We lost our childhood in a system. So we, the children, families and fathers, mothers, grandparents, we wish you all, in a child's best interest, a happy Christmas and a new year, along with your 11% pay rise.
That was our Maggie Tuttle from childrenscreamingtobeheard.com. And Maggie's absolutely right what she says in that. That summarises why children are not with families these days, because they've been stolen by governments around the world, abused by the paedophiles, and can't go home. There's no justice in what happens to them. In my personal story, I've not spoken, not seen my daughter for over 7 years. She's, you know, in a technical sense, if I wasn't a child abuser or a child neglector, she's been no more abused or neglected than my son, who we see once or twice a year, and we do phone him every month, and we can communicate with letters. But our daughter, who knows whether she's alive or dead? Tim.
Well, that's nice to hear Maggie's address. I've heard it myself before, just playing it on my own, but there's something more magical about it being played on our program and sending it out, and it does have the effect of being a strong endorsement and ad for our cause. And I thank you and Maggie for all the support you've shown in putting this book together. And so I'm hoping that that book can not only create a stir, but can also raise a lot of money for children screaming to be heard. We have to think collectively, you and I and Maggie, of a title for the book that will, I think you would be good at that. It's coming up for a good title. You came up with the title for our 2 shows and great at promotion. And,
I'm good at keywords, I think.
yeah. But anyway, it's going to be great. I hope I can get over there with my daughter in July. That'd be awesome. That's really a dream. Got my first royalty check from Lulu for the month of February, so hopefully the money will be more substantial for March and April payments coming through from Lulu. So who knows? I might have enough cash to make it over there by July.
We're just going to have to spend a lot more effort now in promoting what you do, and that way, because without meeting somebody that does a lot of work for us and vice versa, it's a bit of a bonus if we meet you, Tim. It's all this hard work is not been in vain, and the children of this world and the adults will benefit from the knowledge that we all give them. So I'd love to meet you, and I'm not bothered about that contract thing about the money going into my PayPal. I'll do all the SEO work, just for yourself, to come over here. I don't need money. I just need friends like yourself and Bill. And incidentally, I need Bill and Tim, but I don't need the bull. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, you don't need no bull. So, yeah, no, it's going to be great. I hope we can all rally. When is it in July, anyway?
Well, it's July 24th. I'm working with the police to blockade the motorway, and then on the 25th, we've got the conference. But days before the 24th, we've got Sid, a 73-year-old. He's walking from Scotland to Brussels, doing parachute jumps on the way. He's just lost his daughter. She died suddenly. We're still awaiting the cause. But basically, it's a week-long civil disobedience in different ways. We've got a protest in London Downing Street in the same week. So, yeah, it's all full of fun and loads of people like-minded.
Yeah, sounds great. Can't wait for that one. I'll probably make an arrangement to just have my daughter fly directly there, meet her at the airport, and
well, we're gonna meet up on the 23rd at Maggie's tea time of the 23rd. But Maggie, I can go on the 22nd if need be, or the 23rd, and Maggie can leave or meet me with a key. She's out on the 23rd, but we can have a key, so there's no problem there.
Okay, sounds good. So I guess I'll be able to come for a week. Well, we'll work it out. We'll figure it out.
I want to, I'm going to learn Korean cooking before you come.
Yeah.
I cook anyway, but I don't tend to do too much of the healthy stuff. I do the Chinese, the Indian, and all that. But I think doing some Korean, which is very similar food anyway. I've eaten Vietnamese food, which to me looks like Korean food when I look at the menu. But it would be nice as a surprise for your daughter if one night we could cook some Korean food and surprise her, really.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. That would be. We'll have to bring some Korean rice wine, too. That'd be great.
We have Korean stores in London and where we live, so it may not be the same, but it'll be similar.
Okay, great. So, what did you want to finish up with? Because I've got one story here that's quite interesting, but
well, I was going to ask Bill to comment because there's some Michigan, child taking sort of stories, or you might just want to say hello and goodbye. Are you there, Bill?
Yeah, I'm here. You guys are doing fine. I'm just sitting here in the background listening to you and thinking to myself that humans' depravity towards each other apparently knows no bounds.
Nope, indeed.
Because all of this is... the only thing that comes to my mind is what a bunch of sick bastards they are.
Well, you know what really pissed me off was the fact that all these people that went to the Sochi Olympics, all these athletes and everything, were concerned about all these stray dogs, but what about all the homeless people and homeless kids? I mean, what the hell is wrong with people? I remember this one class that I had at this college here in Toronto, and this girl was all upset about this dog that got killed in Iraq, that, you know, this gunfire broke out and this dog got killed, and it was all over the internet that this poor dog had been killed by a bullet. Not that I'm, you know, someone who's callous and doesn't care about animals and so forth, but what the hell is wrong with people? I mean, when I see these people walking down the streets fawning over dogs and cats and aren't you cute and aren't you beautiful and let's take you to the restaurant and let's pop you up on the stool and put a napkin around you and let's prip you and let's put little pom-poms on your ears and let's make you look as cute as possible. And I'm just thinking, what kind of mental illness are people suffering from that makes them actually like animals more than people? I mean, I know that people can be cruel to people and so forth, but to put animals on a pedestal and denigrate the human, what the hell is wrong with people?
I think Bill's lost his microphone again.
Nope, I'm here. I'm listening. I was waiting for Andy to say something because that appeared to be a cue for Andy.
All right then, Tim, why don't you finish off then with your article, and I'm going to make, you know, make my sort of efforts to go and meet Bill. I'm not so bothered about meeting Bill in the US. I'm more interested in his cats. So I'm good, because they're terrible, apparently.
Yeah, anyway, well, one last story. And this is from George Freund. Red Alert, Operation Capstone, Alaska Earthquake, Nuclear Weapon Transportation. There's a joint military exercise apparently happening involving the Alaska National Guard and the Israeli Defense Force National Rescue Unit to participate in a joint training exercise up at Joint Base Elfendorf-Richardson. The training event will allow participants to discuss search and rescue plans and procedures, direction of search and rescue tactical operations, conduct of search and rescue, reconnaissance, and extrication. Israel Defense Forces are particularly interested in search and rescue operations in Arctic environments to enhance their ability to respond to international disasters with similar environments and challenges. More like precipitate international disasters with similar environments and challenges. But anyway, all Israeli Defense Force members are cleared and entered the United States on March 26th as the group planned to conduct a variety of meetings with Department of Defense, National Guard, and State of Alaska officials on March 27th prior to the training event. This group is staying at a hotel in downtown Anchorage. And I sent both of you the DHS FEMA National Exercise Program Capstone Exercise 2014 scenario. So you can go through that document in your leisure. But man, this something's afoot. I'm smelling a bad smell.
Yeah, sounds like it, my friend.
It does appear to be that way, doesn't it?
Indeed. So, anyway, thanks to George for doing his regular sleuthing and snooping. He's a great researcher and quite the amazing radio show host. And his Google Doodle decoding on his blog is really quite remarkable. So if our audience cares to check out George Freund Conspiracy Cafe blog and radio shows and so forth, it's well worth the listen and well worth the read. Thanks very much, Bill. I just wanted to thank you for being on the show today. And sorry for me being a little bit tardy getting online there at the beginning of the show because I'm getting used to using the mute. And forgot that I had it on when I was talking. So there you go. That's why you didn't hear me there a couple of times.
I actually did the same thing.
Oh, sorry.
You did the same. Okay. Anyway, good show, guys. Jolly good show and all that was great. And looking forward to our next installment on Monday, Andy.
Oh, yeah, the truth.
And it appears that Skype has cut us off. You're allowed 2 hours. Rather than go through all the gymnastics of trying to get everybody back together again just to say goodbye, I'm going to go ahead and end the show over here on the Spreaker and freedomtalkradio.net video stream side, because the Blog Talk side has long since stopped being on the air. We are currently about 21 minutes over on the show schedule. It normally goes for 2 hours. We've been on for almost 2.5 hours, which accounts for the way everybody is kind of sounding a little bit shell-shocked at this point because we're not used to doing shows this long. So, at any rate, my name is Bill Zam, and we are going to end the program now. And we'll invite you to come back for another show. I believe our next show is scheduled to be Sunday or so. You have to check the show schedule over there on freedomtalkradio.net. My name is Bill Zam. They were Andy Peacher and Timothy Spearman. And we will see you on our next show. And everybody, try to have a good rest of the day.